May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Tell us a story. Sing us a song. Such a simple request, it would seem, for entertainment, amusement, diversion, for information, education, or some other kind of edification. Songs and stories are, after all, a time-tested way of sharing lessons, offering instruction, and planting wisdom deep enough in the soul that it will be there in every moment of our lives. That is not, however, how the request sounds to the people in today's psalm. By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and there we wept when we remembered Zion. On the willows there we hung up our harps, for there our captors asked us for songs, and our tormentors asked for mirth, saying, "Sing us one of the songs of Zion." We don't even really need to hear the tone of voice to know that the people are being taunted, that they're being mocked. Unlike most of the Psalms of Lament, Psalm 137 is a little different. Most of them are general about enemies or about, natural disasters or things that are overwhelming. But Psalm 137 is incredibly specific, right? It's the only psalm that we can date with any kind of accuracy because it's talking about a specific point in time. The rivers of Babylon refer to the Tigris and the Euphrates. The captors are King Nebuchadnezzar II and his army, who laid siege to Jerusalem in 597 BCE. And the narrators are the people from the kingdom of Judah, who were captured by Nebuchadnezzar, yanked away from their homes, sent to Babylonia, and held captive for decades. It's not hard to imagine that tone of voice, really. Commentator Brad Braxton, writing for the African American Lectionary, remarks that the Babylonians' request for a song of Zion was a vicious request for a type of minstrel show. It's kind of amazing, right? That people struggle to learn anything, but we make the same mistakes over and over. Braxton writes, many African Americans, when reading Psalm 137, have equated the experience of exile detailed in the text with the experience of slavery and segregation, their own exile. As we continue our 5-week focus on spirituals, I'm thinking of something that we heard last week from Dr. Emmett Price III, that in terms of context, the Psalms are really a lot like American Negro spirituals. Both are the songs and prayers of people in exile, people in pain, a way of processing all that they're going through and sending it out into the world. Reading this particular psalm, I wonder if the spirituals in some way aren't also like this psalm itself, a way of throwing it back in the face of everybody who wants them to be happy, throwing it back in the face of the tormentors who ask for songs. They write their own music that's for them, expressed with their own agency, telling their own stories, offering their own instruction, sharing their own lessons, all in code. I think that's my favorite part about spirituals, that it is a way of speaking on so many different levels, and how much you are paying attention determines a lot of how much you get from it. The captors never thought a thing about the singing, never realized that the spirituals weren't just songs people sang or nice things about the Bible. They were ways for enslaved persons who were not allowed to study the Bible, were not allowed to learn to read, to tell those stories to each other, to pass them on, including the more revolutionary stories of exile and the search for liberation. Seriously, did nobody else read the Bible to know what's in there? There's a lot of stuff in there about uprisings, about overcoming your captors. Adding another layer to it all, many of these spirituals were giving instructions for those traveling the Underground Railroad in search of their own freedom in their own time. One of the songs we'll be singing this morning is a good example, Wade in the Water. Well, it cannot be completely confirmed. It's been widely taught and believed that the song existed already, but Harriet Tubman took this song and used it as a way to communicate with fellow travelers on the Underground Railroad. Okay, get off the trail. We're going to walk in the water where the dogs can't smell us. We're going to let the water take us to freedom. The captors thought nothing of it. They thought it was a nice song about biblical stories, about Moses leading the Israelites to freedom, about Isaiah's call to proclaim liberty to the captives. Again, seriously, nobody paying attention? Or about Jesus' miracle at a small pool outside the temple in Jerusalem. As the angel would come and stir the waters there, people would come into the pool to be healed. And Jesus comes alongside a man who has no friends to help him get into the pool. And so Jesus brings him the water. Somehow, the oppressors never noticed that these biblical stories were radical reminders of God's desire to set any and all captives free. As I was doing research for today's sermon, I turned to a book Dr. Price had recommended, The Books of American Negro Spirituals by James Weldon Johnson and J. Rosamond Johnson. If those names sound familiar to you, it's because they are the author and composer of the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. The Johnson's books provide this musical scores for over 100 spirituals, as well as a rich history and musicology of the works that are included. Even before I got to any of that, I found myself just getting lost in the table of contents. Some of the songs go by names that we still use for them, and others take some other phrase out of the lyrics of the song, and that's what they call the song. So instead of Wade in the Water, the Johnson's contents list the spiritual as God's gonna trouble the water. And it made me wonder, do the Johnsons put a different emphasis on the song? Is their emphasis not about what people are gonna do, but about what God is doing, already doing, going to continue to do? Or is it simply that's the way they learned the song and heard it most often? Another of this morning's songs, Give Me Jesus, is listed just that way in a table of contents with the same title, but the verses fall in a different order than the ones that we're going to sing. And I read them completely differently than ever before. The version we usually sing starts with, In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus. And then the next verses are, and when I am alone, just about the break of day, oh, when I come to die, and when I want to sing. And those all hold together, but each one is also kind of separate from each other, right? But the Johnsons do something different with their version. Their version starts with, oh, when I come to die. Oh, when I come to die. Oh, when I come to die, give me Jesus. And the next words are, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus. It's no longer, it's telling a totally different story. It's no longer kind of this reminder that Jesus is with us no matter what happens, which is true. It's a reminder that sometimes death comes first, that that's what people are facing, that that's what they are singing about. Maybe physical life, maybe the death of their soul. But what comes after that is when I rise, give me Jesus. It's a resurrection song. It's a resurrection song. for anybody who desperately needs resurrection, coded or uncoded. There could be any number of reasons for the differences between these versions of the spirituals and all the other versions that we would find. They were all in the oral tradition for so long that we understand that they would have been shared a little differently given your location or who passed them on. They were sung, not codified on the page, right? They were lived, not recorded in a studio. But I think it's also a sign that these songs are dynamic and always were, that they were intended to be, that they were meant to meet whatever moment a person was singing them. The generations before, they were sung by the Tigris and the Euphrates, that eventually they were sung in fields and homes and factories of backbreaking work, that they were sung in the streets and at lunch counters and on the buses in protest and proclamation. And eventually, these songs wove themselves into just about every form of American music we can think of. Gospel and jazz and blues, R&B and rap and hip hop, even country music and rock, and that which is still being written today. And opera, for any of you who had a chance to see the production Omar this fall. The spirituals were shaped by the hearts and voices of the people who sang them. And the songs in their very being acknowledge the fact that all pain is different and all pain is the same. In fact, it's something Dr. Price said in his webinar. It doesn't bother him if people who are not African American want to sing the spirituals. He wants them to be shared. So long as we are respectful, so long as we are honoring. Everybody has pain, he says. Everybody has struggle. These are songs that are alive in our lives, in our experiences, and our music. Such is the way that pastor and theologian Howard Thurman wrote, "The waters of life are troubled, but there are healing waters in their midst, because God is present in the midst of the turmoil." And if the spirituals keep changing and adapting and growing, moving forward, I wonder if they can circle themselves all the way back to the banks of the rivers of Babylon. I wonder if we listen hard enough, maybe we can hear those of our ancestors singing a song not for their captors, but for themselves. I wonder if it sounds like, "Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water, God's gonna trouble the water." We keep singing. Amen.